Warning, the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. Now, here he is, author of Liberalism is a Mental Disorder, Trump's War, and God, Faith, and Reason, Michael Savage.
From the Cleftones to Black Lives Matter in one generation, welcome to the Savage Nation. You know, I look at my high school yearbook. I didn't know who my friends were. I remember one or two of them. I was shocked, I tell you, to find out that an African-American young man was my friend. He signed a photo over to me. Yeah, it was very diverse. I didn't know it was diverse. It was based upon whether we got along or not. It had nothing to do with race. Now, today, of course, in walks Obama, as though he's running for the presidency again. The same pompous, wounded, arrogant, divisive man was back. It was unbelievable to watch him. We have some of the sound. I mean, it's not laughable. It's actually frightening to see that this man has learned nothing. And the hypocrisy of Obama is something to behold as he talks about the rich. After all, this is a man who got a $70 million book advance in his last months of the presidency. This is a man who got a $100 million Netflix deal. This is a man who is stealing a piece of parkland in Chicago for his library. And he talks about the rich and the divisiveness in America. My God. Well, today we've got a bunch of topics. We'll have California Secretary of State candidate Mark Muser. I normally don't do politicians. They're boring. But listen to what he's going to disclose today. He discovered that 23,000 people incorrectly registered to vote by the DMV. That's how many they caught. You know, the DMV. I've been calling that the Department of Mexican Voting for 20 years. Yeah, okay, well, he'll be here to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about, do you think President Trump should bomb Syria and risk war with Russia? No. If we get that, I'm out. I told you that before. I'm a man of my word. Donald Trump ran as a non-interventionist. Never forget that. I sold him as a man of peace, a non-interventionist, not a member of the neocon brigade. I wake up and there's John Bolton there, the mustache, and now they're threatening war with Russia. There was the maniac, Nikki Haley, the worst of all of them, screaming in the UN today. And I say to myself, what was the point of this whole election if we're going to have the same damn thing again? Also, has Cory Booker damaged his career? You betcha. But on an unsecular level, today is Friday. Okay, let's back off a little bit. Let's just relax. I'm playing rock and roll. It's Rock and Roll Friday. It's a very powerful weekend for me and also for a lot of people around the world, not just because the kids have gone back to school and the mother can now indulge in Chardonnay and Valium or whatever she's using these days. She can go back to a normal cocktail of Chardonnay and whatever the, let us say, medication of choice is being used by shrinks today. But Sunday night at sundown, is the eve of the Jewish New Year. And for those of you who are Christian and want to know something about what Rosh Hashanah means, I'm going to give you a little background on it tonight. And the reason I'm going to do that is for two reasons. One, because the Judeo-Christian civilization that we are all enjoying is so important to all of us that it's important to know something about the Judeo-Christian background from time to time. I mean, we're supposed to whisper about it because the ACLU doesn't like it, or someone at the FCC may take offense. So Sunday night, I'm going to give there's the dinner. I'm not giving anything. I'm just going to go to a dinner. It's a happy holiday. Rosh Hashanah just means the head of the year, Jewish New Year. And the Jewish people celebrate the beginning. I know it's weird. It's like a weird lunar calendar. No one understands this. Why is it if our New Year's Eve is December 31st, why do the Jews celebrate in the middle of September or October? What is it? It's a crazy holiday that never falls on the same date. At least with our calendar, they say, we know Thanksgiving's on this day, Christmas is on the 25th, New Year's Eve is on the 31st. What's with the Jewish calendar? You don't know when it's going to happen. Why? Well, I'll try to explain that to you a little later. The lunar calendar, it's a different calendar. It's based on the cycles of the moon. But it goes back a long time. Jewish people celebrating the beginning of the year 5,779. I just want you to think about what tradition means to our society and our civilization. I mean, we count our calendar based upon the Christ, the era of Christ, BCE, before the Christian era, right? BCE, remember it used to be BC, before Christ. Then it changes before Christian era. But it's the arrival of Jesus on the planet and the beginning of the religion of Christianity that marks Western civilization for all of us in the West. Well, for the Jewish people, they mark it with something more ancient in the sense of years. Almost 6,000 years the Jewish people have been on the planet. Now, I know there's a lot of people who are anti-Semitic out there who don't want to hear any of this, but, you'll take your medicine and enjoy it anyway. I asked before the show of some Christian members of the folks who work on the Savage Nation, do you think I should talk about this today? And they said, absolutely. And this came from a young lady who's a devout Christian herself who said many Christian people are interested in Jewish holidays and what they mean because they know it's the cornerstone of our religion in many ways. So that's why I'm going to talk about that today. I'm going to talk about nationalism. There's a new book out, not mine, so you can relax. I got it in the mail today, The Virtue of Nationalism by Yoram Hazanai, which is phenomenal. The Virtue of Nationalism by this young man. He's a genius. And he makes some great points about nationalism as opposed to globalism that are worth talking about. And one of the main points he makes in the book is that liberal universalism, by insisting upon a singular political constitution for all peoples on the earth, resembles the imperialist ideologies of Islam and Marxism, and thus is also capable of fomenting intolerance and hate. You betcha. But he argues that national states tend to allow for the growth of free institutions, including minority rights and liberties, and accordingly effectively secure peace. But what I like most about the book was he says the Old Testament first offered a political order based on the independence of a nation living within unlimited borders alongside other independent nations. That's an amazing insight. The Old Testament was about a nation called Israel living within limited borders alongside other independent nations. And that is why my motto of Borders, Language, and Culture is so near and dear to my heart. And I want to go to some of the other stories we're going to talk about on the program today. I mentioned quite a few so far. Again, it's open mic to Mike Friday, 855-400-7282 is the phone number, 855-400-SAVAGE. Remember, jump in with any topic that's bugging you or interests you. Brazil's far-right presidential candidate survives life-saving surgery after being stabbed by a socialist attacker. Another peaceful socialist killed an opposition leader, almost killed him, just as the socialists are the violent ones in this country, just as the Elizabeth Warrens, Bernie Sanders acolytes are actually the dangerous fascists of our time. It is true as well in Brazil. Here's another story it's kind of sad and it's not meant to be funny. Pokey Huntress says remove Trump on nutcase amendment is my headline. I thought it was clever and cute, and I did it to get your attention on my Twitter feed. It has not yet been taken down by Mr. Dorsey. I hope he's not too busy to understand its sarcasm. And I had a story about Elizabeth Warren who said that it's time to use the 25th Amendment to remove Trump from office. We got a booming economy, the lowest minority unemployment rate in our lives, and this lunatic, this phony, wants to remove Trump under the 25th Amendment. So I linked it up on my Twitter feed on michaelsavage.com, and I came up with my headline, which is, Pokey Huntress says remove Trump on nutcase amendment. I would be a good headline writer for a Victorian newspaper. In fact, maybe when I retire, I'll get a Victorian newspaper and move to Victoria, the Victoria of my mind. There is no Victoria. But Victorian England was well known for these kind of exclamatory headlines that used to be so popular in America. I grew up on them. Remember, when I was a boy in New York, there were 6 daily newspapers or something like that, and they all screamed with these tabloid headlines that I grew up on. And I liked them. I loved tabloid headlines because they got my attention. And I was able to, as a child, to understand the story immediately with bold, black letters. And the thing is, the average reader is about 9 or 10 years old anyway. The average reader of a newspaper, no matter what their intellectual level may be, their real IQ, fundamentally they're appealing to them on the 9-year-old level. So I don't know what's wrong with Victorian-style headlines, and I use them on my website, on my Twitter feed, Facebook. I like Pokey Huntress says remove Trump on nutcase amendment because you can understand it. Immediately you understood it. Nutcase amendment. I don't say the 25th. No one knows what that means. Unless you have a toupee and you're on Fox News and act like you're a very smart man, I like to use these kind of headlines. Pokey Huntress. So, okay, made the point. Mean-faced left-wing fanatic loses in Delaware race against mainstream Dem. That's my other headline. Mean-faced left-wing fanatic loses in Delaware race against mainstream Dem. Progressives' next big hope falls short in Delaware. So although I don't support the Dems, in this case, I do support Tom Carper. He's more reliable than the maniac that was running against him. So don't think that the progressives are going to have, such a field day. Okay, she just lost. That's all. End of story. Move on. 855-407-282. I'm getting the calls are coming in the tent already. I told you, I imagine that talk radio is like a revival tent. And I'm the preacher up in that revival tent somewhere. And it holds an awful lot of people. And sometimes, it's full before you even start. They're in the seats. The crowd's buzzing. They're eating peanuts. They're sweating. They're waiting for you to go on the air. And some days it's kind of empty or half full. And then some days it's overfull. And I don't know what today brings because it's a very weird time in America right now. Out here in the San Francisco area, the highways are not too crowded, I guess. I don't know why. What is this, some extended vacation for people? How is everyone still on vacation? Doesn't anyone work? I do. And I'm here working for you. And I'll be back to work for you right here on the Savage Nation.
Savage.
It is the Savage Nation, Friday edition of September 2018. Wow, time flies, doesn't it? I like September. The light is beautiful in September. You notice how light changes during the year, no matter where you live? Of course, it should. Yeah. I mean, we're not Ptolemaics. I mean, it does change. We do move around the sun. I know the Democrats think that the earth is flat and that there is no God, and they worship idols. I understand that, such as the Academy Awards. Those are their idols that they worship. But the rest of us understand that the earth actually moves around the sun. I don't know if you know that yet. I know it's not accepted. It's not really accepted in Hollywood. But the earth does not move around Kardashian. It moves around the sun. It doesn't move around Steven Spielberg. It moves around the sun. You get the picture, okay? So the 10th of September, Monday, I'm just looking at this calendar. It's the day of remembrance of my father. I didn't know, man. I forgot his birthday. It's right there in that calendar. The Remembrance Day of my father, Benjamin. Interesting. All right, too many memories. I don't want to live in the past. I want to live in the present and the future. The news is drab. We could sit here and criticize the left and liberals. That's standard, right? You criticize liberals. If you do talk radio, you say, why, those liberals, I got to tell you. It's them liberals. Yeah, and it's them people in Washington like we never heard it before. But if you're tired of that, as I am, we do other things. So, for example, King Obama reappears. That's political. Do you think President Trump should bomb Syria and risk war with Russia only if he wants to lose his base? They're not going to cheer him in Montana if he bombs Syria and provokes a Middle Eastern war because he ran as a non-interventionist, and if they've turned him, meaning the war party has turned him, he's going to lose his base no matter how many tricks he pulls. And I say the same thing to him if I get the chance as I'm saying to him right now on the radio. No bombing of Syria under a false flag. They're not using gas when they've wiped out ISIS and have them on the run. What do I have to do that for? That's an attempt, JFK's nephew may have died from hot yoga. It's a sad story because I never heard of hot yoga. John F. Kennedy's actor nephew has died at age 63, and hot yoga may be to blame. Christopher Kennedy Lawford, a heart attack and collapse during the sweaty yoga session in Vancouver, Canada, Tuesday night. Lawford wrote a book about his battle with drug addiction, son of Patricia Kennedy, sister of John, Robert, and Ted Kennedy. His dad was legendary Rat Pack entertainer Peter Lawford. But Lawford began experimenting with drugs while away at boarding school as a teenager in the 60s. My father told me that I would have been ruined if he was rich. I wish he was rich, so I could have gone to boarding school. I always wanted to go to boarding school. I thought those jackets were neat. The patches looked nice. The girls had their noses in the air. I mean, I wanted to go to boarding school. I would have learned how to ride horses and stuff like that. I could have learned how to golf. played tennis. But I didn't go to boarding school. I rode the Q44A in the slush to Jamaica High School, and I didn't experiment with drugs at boarding school because I didn't go to boarding school. Who actually succeeds in boarding school unless their father has money? Anyway, then this poor kid moved on to heroin in the 70s and other opioids. And this Kennedy nephew, his addiction got so bad that at one point he mugged a woman for money. And the Kennedy even panhandled in Grand Central Station. He wrote in his own book. Well, it's a sad story. So then he goes through this hot yoga thing and dies of an HA. Hot yoga is performed by enthusiasts. They perform their yoga poses in a sauna-like room, often heated to around 105 degrees. Can you believe how stupid people are today? The stuff they come up with. Would you expect exercising in a 105-degree sauna is good for your health at any age? You got to be meshuggah or crazy to do a thing like that, which goes back to my show yesterday. I told you. Every morning I wake up at dawn, I look out on the San Francisco Bay, and I see a very intelligent, healthy man paddleboarding at dawn. I close the curtains and go right back to sleep where I get my clearest thoughts. The human body's not meant for hard work at dawn. Yes, if you're in a prison camp. Yes, if you're a prisoner of war under the Japanese building a bridge somewhere over the River Kwai. You work at dawn. But a human being isn't supposed to do that. You're supposed to get up slowly, like birth in the morning. It's like a slow process, not frenetic. Not gulping coffee and stuffing cereal down your ears.
Savage.
I want to talk about Rosh Hashanah, which means the head of the year. All it means is the head of the year. It's the Jewish New Year. What does that mean to you? Probably nothing. But what it means to the world is that there's been a contiguous civilization for almost 6,000 years, despite all of the adversity. There are those amongst the Jewish people who have maintained the traditions and kept them alive. Almost 6,000 years of the traditions of the Jewish people. So when you say Judeo-Christianity or Judeo-Christian society, I think you need to study a little bit more about what the word Rosh Hashanah means. It's actually a very happy holiday. It just means the head of the year. And what it means to the religious out there, Christians or Jews, it reaffirms the special relationship between God and mankind. It makes us remember that we are dependent upon God as our sustainer and creator. But it also reminds us that God is dependent upon us because it's we who make his presence known and we who make his presence felt in the world. Without us, God could not exist on this planet. So it's a very big two-way street. Now, what happens on Rosh Hashanah is very important to the believers. This begins what are known as the 10 days of awe. What happens between Rosh Hashanah, which is a happy celebratory holiday, ends on Yom Kippur, the day of atonement, the day of fasting, where people beg God for their forgiveness for all the sins they have committed or might have committed or would commit or whatever. It's a very heavy day, a very sad day. But during this 10 days, known as the 10 days of awe, Jews believe that all people of the world pass before God like a flock of sheep. And in heaven, in the court of heaven, it's decided who shall live and who shall die, who shall be impoverished and who shall be enriched, who shall fall and who shall rise. So religious Jews might have been seen going to a body of water. That could be a lake, a river, just a body of water. And they go and they throw bread upon the water. Many songs and poems were written about that. And what the religious Jews do is they throw bread into the water where there are fish. Because water symbolizes kindness, and fish have an ever-open eye, which corresponds to the 13 divine attributes that God has commanded us to follow. And so we're supposed to throw bread into water where there are living fish. And then they say a simple prayer. And please indulge me for a minute, because I want you to listen to how political this religious prayer is that is said today during the Tashlich prayer. You'll see how political religion has become. The prayer goes like this: Who is a God like you, who pardons iniquity and forgives transgression? For the remnant of his heritage, he does not maintain his wrath forever, for he desires to do kindness. He will again show his mercy. He will suppress our iniquities. And you will cast all their sins into the depths of the sea. Show faithfulness to Jacob, kindness to Abraham, which you have sworn to our fathers from the days of yore. From out of distress I called to God. With abounding relief, God answered me. The Lord is with me, I do not fear. What can man do to me? The Lord is with me among my helpers, and I will see the downfall of my enemies. And it concludes with these two prayers. It is better to rely on the Lord than to trust in man. It is better to rely on the Lord than to trust in nobles. The last phrase is of particular importance to people who are extremely political. Never, ever trust a politician. It was taught to us from biblical times. They are not to be trusted. It is better to rely on the Lord than to trust in nobles. Do you understand that? So that's one of the foundations of this Rosh Hashanah holiday, that you may see religious Jews in your neighborhood not know what they're doing with the black outfits, throwing bread in the water. You think they're nuts. Meshuggah, what are they doing? Another one of the elements of Rosh Hashanah is the sounding of the ram's horn in temples around the world at sundown. And it has a certain sound. Neil, will you play that one now? This is the sound of the shofar, which is read in temple after the reading of the Torah. Can we hear that, please? What that is an attempt to awaken the congregants from their slumber, awaken them to the fact that another year has passed and another year is about to begin. But more than that, in my interpretation, it's a very deeply mystical sound, the blowing of the ram's horn. The mystics, the Jewish mystics who study the Kabbalah, believe that angels are formed from the blowing of the ram's horn. And these sounds, the Tekiah and the Shevarim, the Teruah and the Tekiah, all of these sounds ask the angels to intercede favorably on our behalf to atone for all of our sins. And we're asking God to hear our voice, to help us live in kindness, no matter what has been done to us, no matter what has befallen us this day or the day before, whether it be physical or financial or personal or in your love life, or you lost a mother or a father or a child. You're saying to God, I still love you. I understand that I rejoice in your word like one who finds greatness anywhere. And thank you for giving me the wisdom to understand you, God, because it takes great wisdom to understand God. It's not that easy to understand God. In fact, in an age of cynicism, it's very difficult to show any belief in God. People are very cynical today. But you should understand that many people around the world, Jewish or Christian or other religious people, have called to God in their days of distress, and they can tell you over and over again with absolute certainty that God answered their prayers. I'm not going to go into a schmaltzy story about my life, but it happened. It happened, and it's very important that I tell you that I personally know that God exists, precisely because we can't see him, he exists. That's what human beings need. And so, therefore, as I say to you, religion is paramount to our society and to our civilization. And so, since the primitives who believe in religion, amongst the Jews, beginning with Rosh Hashanah and the 10 days of awe, they believe. Even the most cynical actually probably has a semblance of remembering of being a child, during which the father may have said to him, mind your step, son, you're entering God's temple, and over the next 10 days, God is going to judge you whether you're written into the book of life. Like, oh, man, okay, I'm young, I'm 8 years old, I don't want to be wiped out. You watch your step, you blow that nose, you brush those teeth, you do your homework, you don't tell any lies, you polish that apple for your teacher. Do everything right over these next 10 days because God is watching. So the child, believes in that. Then you become a man, you become cynical. Who believes in that? That's for a kid. And yet there's an awful lot of adults who actually believe God is watching them in these days. So they do certain rituals. They blow the shofar. And they say, blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has granted us life, sustained us, enabled us to reach this occasion. Well, what does that mean? What do you mean God has granted us life? What do you mean sustained us? Isn't it welfare and food stamps that sustain us? What do you mean God has enabled us to reach this occasion? Well, to some it is, but to most there actually is a God. And they do ask God to inscribe them in the book of life. But what's a very interesting fact that you don't know is that during the Rosh Hashanah period, when the men are praying and the women are praying, they say in Hebrew, remember us for life, inscribe us in the book of life for your sake, O living God. So you're saying to God, for your sake, inscribe us in the book of life. What does that mean? Why would God want us to be in the book of life? Why does he want us to live, not to die? I say this is one of the most important questions that I, as a spiritual man, could answer on the radio from my perspective. Am I a rabbi? No. Am I a holy man? No. Am I asking for a donation? No. Am I selling you a survival item to cash in on it? No. Am I selling you a Savage Bible? No. I'm giving you one man's interpretation of that very meaningful prayer where the religious man says, God, inscribe us in the book of life for your sake. Why do they say for your sake? Why is it for God's sake they would want to inscribe us? Because without man, God could not exist on this planet. Do you understand that? And do you know how that differentiates us from the atheists? As good as they may be, some atheists, and as wonderful they may be, and as great shepherds they may be of the earth, they don't even understand what they're doing in the big picture. In other words, the atheistic nature lover would say, I'm as good as you, if not better, because I protect the environment. What they don't understand is that a plant cannot worship God. The animal who I may love cannot worship God. My dog, who I love very much, cannot worship God. The eagle cannot worship God. The hawk that I love to look at as he flies over the trees cannot worship God. But I can. And so, in other words, for God to exist on this planet, we have to be here. So for the sake of God, we ask him to inscribe us in the book of life. And that's my revelation. I'm Michael Savage. I'll be right back.
Savage.
I got to tell you something. I've been sleeping on a great mattress called Casper, and I pick it over every other mattress. Sure, they advertise on the show, but it's a great mattress. I sleep like a baby. It's unbelievable. You got to try it. And you can switch to a Casper so easily. High quality, affordable price. Why don't you sleep cool and comfortably every night using the unique combination of foams, which will give you the right pressure relief and alignment? They'll ship you that Casper right to your door. Tiny box. You'll say, how'd they get it in that box? You don't like it, they'll pick it up. Give you back every dime. From its engineering to its packaging to letting you try it for 100 nights in your own home. It's no wonder Casper has over 35,000 five-star reviews of all their products across Casper, Google, and Amazon. Sleeping on a mattress is the best way to try it. So put Casper to the test in your own home for 100 nights. Free. Risk-free. Go to Casper.com. Use code SAVAGE. You'll get $50 towards the purchase of select mattresses. You heard me right. That's Casper.com, code SAVAGE, and get $50 towards the purchase of select mattresses. Casper.com. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome back to the Savage Nation. There's other stories I'm going to do today, so let's take some of the calls, though, because you're the reason that this show exists. Like I said in the earlier piece, without us, God wouldn't be here, right? But without the caller, talk show host wouldn't be here. You think about how symbiotic the caller is to the talk show. Do you realize that? The caller, without the caller, there's no talk show. It's a monologue show, not a talk show. Anyway, 855-400-7282. KSFO, Ed, line 5. Go ahead, please. What's on your mind?
Michael, I just wanted to congratulate you on your continued success based on your faith in God, our Creator, and your ability to parse your cynicism with your intellect and also remain completely faithful to God. And in saying that...
You know what keeps me humble? I'll tell you what keeps me humble. Is mortality and the recognition that we're all mortal. Because if there were no mortality, all of us would act like a fool.
Of course. And the fact that you continue to bring up, whenever your spirit is stirred, God, faith, and reason, which are all one and the same, I think the symbiotic relationship between us and our Creator is the fact that we've been created to glorify Him, to worship Him. And even
I think that's very well put. And, you know, in an age of cynicism where no one dares talk about religion on the public airwaves, you realize how bold it is of me to even talk about it.
Of course.
Do you realize how risky it is, given the people in the media what they think of me when I do a thing like this? They already say I'm too discursive. I have too many stories. I get too personal. I don't do the news every 3 seconds. I'm not like other talk show hosts who every second are reading a news story. So now I'm talking about religion. How dare he do that?
Exactly. people are afraid to speak about the fact that there is evil and that there is a creator and that there is a war going on.
I think you touched the raw nerve. One of the main reasons the atheistic media refuses to permit the discussion of God is because if you say there's a God, then there's good and evil. And if you say there's good and evil, then you have to judge people. And they're into non-judgmentalism, unless, of course, they're judging you for believing in nationalism, borders, language, and culture. Then they can judge you. See, that's how that works. But thank you. That's all. Next case. Oh, these are great callers. I got to talk about something that's eating at me. I would feel I'm not being truthful to God. To today's show, I got to be really careful. Like, these becomes like a really spooky time for me. Like he's watching, like, he knows when you've been good or bad, so be good for goodness sake. I always feel like God's around, but sometimes I turn my back on him. You think he turns his back on me? He watches. He knows what I'm doing. Then we come back, and I'm sorry. Didn't mean to do that. All right, you're forgiven. But, like, this time of year, I really feel the presence. I feel it. So I read a story that got me sad and angry this morning, and it's about Trump Jr. hunting bighorn sheep with a former NFL guy who killed himself a few days later. I got angry. I didn't just get mad. I got angry. I get real angry. Hunting bighorn sheep disgusts me. NFLer commits suicide days after hunting trip with Trump Jr. All right, it has nothing to do with Trump Jr., but why are they hunting bighorn sheep? I want you to think about this. Why would a man go out and search out an animal that fled to the highest peaks in Utah or Montana to get away from predators and evolved into these magnificent creatures who are vegetarians? All they do is munch on lichens. That's all they do. What human being would seek to hunt out an animal like that and shoot it with a high-powered rifle with a scope from a distance? Tell me. If I don't say this, then I'm a liar to my own belief system. As you know, I failed in getting the attention of this administration to stop the killing of trophies in Africa. I failed completely. I promised you I would try. I lobbied for over a year. I got nowhere. And no one cares. They could care less. The geniuses who run political campaigns have told the president and the Democrats, don't even talk about it because nobody cares. Guess what? If nobody cares, then I'll be the only man on earth who cares. How's that? Because I got to be true to me. And this story got me very angry for two reasons. One, hunting innocent creatures who harm nobody. They're vegetarians. They don't even kill other animals. What are you killing them for? To put a horn on your mantle? It makes you a big man? It makes you feel tough to have a horn on your mantle? Are you joking? Okay, that's number one. But number two, and I know this is the end of the road if I say what I'm going to say, but I'm that kind of guy. I got to say it like it is. What sense does it make for the son of a president who is already controversial to go out and kill an innocent animal like this at a time like this? You mean he couldn't stop hunting for a year? It would have killed him? Why would Trump Jr. go and hunt the bighorn sheep now at this time? Why? Tell me why. How does that help the president? Tell me how it helps him. With who? With which demographic? The animal-killing demographic? They already love Trump. Does it help with the independent women? I don't think so. I don't think all of the educated white women who turned toward Trump in the last days of the election are going to really love him more because his son kills bighorn sheep. What kind of advisors do these people have? They certainly don't have me. They must have a meathead from Fox News who calls him day and night and puts these thoughts in his mind. A meathead who's probably telling him what to tweet.
Savage. Warning, the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. Now, here he is, author of Liberalism is a Mental Disorder, Trump's War, and God, Faith, and Reason, Michael Savage.
It is the Rock and Roll Friday show that you all love, or you wouldn't be listening. All right, you get the picture. So today, the devil himself reappears on the political scene. We thought he was gone. We thought he was finished. We thought he was happy making his hundreds of millions of dollars a year. But no, here he comes again, as though he's running for the presidency. And what is the first thing Obama says about discrimination? Here is a man who I can't, how many times do I have to tell you people, how dumb can you be? How dumb can you be? He got a $70 million book advance in the last months of his presidency. He got a $100 million Netflix deal. He's carving out a piece of the lakefront land for his library. And here he is talking about unfairness and discrimination in clip 2 on the Savage Nation. I think it should be played. Well,
and so in response to the stain of slavery,
here we go again.
And segregation, and the reality of racial discrimination.
Again, the same thing.
The civil rights movement.
Here we go again.
Not only opened new doors for
civil rights
African Americans, but also opened up the floodgates of opportunity for women and Americans with disabilities and LGBT Americans.
Oh, God.
Others
Get off
to make
your soapbox.
their own claims
I
to
can't listen. I thought he was gone. I thought he was happy cashing in on his hundreds of millions. But here he is, going back to basics, using race again and class warfare to sell his lies. It's astounding. But it got even worse, and I'm not going to play it because I was trying to have a good time today, to be honest with you. Do you have that other song that we picked, the Beast of Burden one? Got Beast of Burden? We're putting Beast of Burden in the queue. Let's take some callers, please, if you don't mind. WABC, Menachem, line 1. Welcome to the program from New York City, where you're sweating like in a steam bath.
Hello?
Yes, you're on the radio. That was a cue. Go ahead.
Hey, hello, I'm here.
And? So say something already. You're here. Go ahead.
All right, that's you. Okay, first of all, I got a great song for you to sing. Try Call Nidre.
Oh, please, don't do this to me. How'd you get on my show?
Okay. Dr. Savage, I want to comment on your beautiful monologue before. I wish you wouldn't have brought Obama to ruin it all up, because he's not going anywhere, sir. He's going to stay on the picture as long as he can and mess it up for all.
Okay, so forget Obama. You called with a positive. Let's go back to positive. You love my description of Rosh Hashanah, right?
The monologue that you were, I had a call because in response to your monologue, which was beautiful.
Was that wait a minute? Was that a cow behind you? Where are you? Are you in a barnyard?
Yeah,
Wait, are you in a slaughterhouse? Where are you right now?
I am in Brooklyn, New York. I pulled over to speak to you.
Yeah, but I heard a cow in the background. What was that cow sound?
It's called. My car needs a repair.
Oh, I thought maybe you were a ritual slaughterer. I didn't know. I'm going to cow you were killing, like a bighorn sheep in the mountains. All right, I'm joking. All right, you're a very nice man to call. I'm glad I touched you with my monologue. It is beautiful to be able to do it on commercial radio, especially for all the religious people who I know listen to this show and listen to no other media. That's a fact of life. Menachem, thank you. This is something I got to divulge to you that people don't know in the media. Let this be known in the history of talk radio. I have a large audience of very religious Jewish people who listen to this show and will not listen to media otherwise. They're not permitted to listen to it. They have no televisions in their homes because they know it's the devil's device. They don't listen to radio because they're afraid of the pornographic imagery and thoughts. And yet they listen to this show for a lot of different things. Sometimes they disagree with me, by the way, on some topics. And I want to thank them especially today for being such loyal listeners to the program. But I didn't do that for them or for ratings. I did it because I have to do it for my own reasons. And my own reason is because I have to thank God for what I have. You know, I can't tell you this right now because it's not over yet. What if I tell you that I began in radio and I thought all was lost? And I thought it was over. And I told a story, and not a Hearts and Flowers story to get your, appeals going here. But I remember I was living in a horrendous place in California, one of the worst places on earth. If you looked at it, from the outside, it looks beautiful. A little country town, Fairfax, California. It was the meanest place I'd ever lived on the planet. I've been in a lot of places on earth. The people were like zombies, like robots. A hippie village, that health food stores and bars, that kind of thing. But I was so alone, I may as well have been wandering in the desert. Anyway, all things came to a crashing halt in my life. For whatever reason, after working so hard for advanced degrees, they wouldn't hire me because I was white and a male and a hetero and a family man. So I was out. There was no jobs. 200 rejections with it, almost straight A, whatever. I didn't know which way to turn because I felt like I had failed my family. So I decided to turn to prayer. I can only tell you this the way it was. And I went out on my deck. I looked at the mountains, and I let out scream. I didn't just pray. I let out a roar. Must have been heard across the mountains because it resonated back and forth like an echo. Soon thereafter, the Red Sea parted. I don't know how exactly. I got a list of 500 radio station program directors. I cut a demo tape. I sent it out. 4 stations around the country said, you're pretty good. Would you like a job? One of them was in Boston. One was in San Francisco. And then I went and took a job at night as a fill-in host on KGO Radio in San Francisco. And the program director, the general manager, liked what I heard. They offered me a full-time job on the radio beginning that January on KSFO, which is a new station. Now, that was a long time ago. It's a quarter of a century ago, but I'll never forget what led me to that. One day, I will be able to tell you that a similar moment occurred in my life recently. I can't tell it to you now because it's not behind me. But let me just say to you, once again, because of, I don't know how to put it. I don't know the right word here. I'm supposed to know the words. Because I turned to God, the Red Sea parted again. That's all I can say to you. I don't know how else to put it. So I am, at the end of the day, we're tested. We are tested. Oh, we tested. And we forget. We all forget. And I get a little schmaltzy religious this time of year. I have to admit, it comes up in my soul because I'm very deeply connected to the ancestry that I have. And apparently they still function in my DNA because you can't help but, right? Where do you think the book God, Faith, and Reason came from? It didn't come from a postcard. I've basically been writing it since I'm a little kid. And I shouldn't be talking about it. I should be talking about a new book, Stop Mass Hysteria, but I'm not ready yet. Right now, I'm not quite ready to even talk about Stop Mass Hysteria. That's in God's hands. And I think that the timing of that book, unfortunately, is such that with the riots and the left-wing violence and the hatred coming from the left, when people go to the bookstores the first week of October and they see Stop Mass Hysteria, they're going to buy it. And how many they buy? It's not filled with scandal. It doesn't claim Trump's 10 years old. It doesn't have any secret information in it. It's intelligent. It has an intelligent look at the mass hysteria that we're living through right now and tries to connect it to historical events for a number of reasons, which I'm not ready to discuss. But that really is in the hands of a higher power as well, as many things are that we don't know about. So we get back to the news of the day. So what's the news of the day? Actually, there is no news of the day, but there's so many people in the news business today, they make up news. So everyone has a website, has to make up news. Everyone who has a TV show. You take a look at Fox News, for example. God bless them. From morning till night, you got flashing lights with breaking news, breaking news, breaking news, breaking news. Do you really respond to that like a robot anymore? No, but it's made to make you think there's breaking news. Well, what's the breaking news today? Well, I don't know. Is there any? No, so people make it up. Obama comes back, attacks Trump. He whines and he attacks Trump. He divides the nation while talking about a divided nation. Musk got high on a podcast. I'm a sugar altogether. Musk. Who are these guys? I don't even know who they are. How does a guy like Musk, who's a stoner, invent stuff? I don't understand it. I don't understand where these guys come from who run these big companies. No one ever heard of them. Well, what? Are they like robots? Are they from another planet? Are they ETs? Sometimes you ask crazy questions. Twitter bans Alex Jones for life. That's a terrible shame. That should not have happened. You don't have to like Alex Jones, but you shouldn't ban a man because you don't like his opinion. And I think the president needs to step in. I think the president needs to step in to Twitter, Facebook, Google, all of them, and tell them, look, you're so big now, you're a public utility, and we're going to regulate you like a public utility. You have no right to ban people just because you don't like their politics. You're too big to do that. That's long overdue. China wants landing strip near U.S. base in Greenland. What else do they not want? What else is in the news? I'm not in the news. Nikki Haley, I don't like. She gave a speech in the UN today that got me angry. Looks like she wants to gin up a war with Russia over Syria. Don't like it at all. It's sickening, actually. Most of you don't know who Nikki Haley is. Nikki Haley is our UN ambassador. I don't know why Trump picked her. We didn't even pull her sound. She's so bad. Yeah. She threatened. Oh, listen to this. Here she's threatening Syria and Russia. Listen to this warmonger. This warmonger who, listen, here's what bothers me the most. First of all, We elected Trump because he was a non-interventionist. Check that and say yes. I pushed Trump for a year straight because he was a man of peace. Check yes. I said elect a businessman, not a politician. Say yes. Check that. But most importantly, I said he will not involve us in foreign wars. Check that. I wake up, here we are again. The very same neocons, the very same swamp that we're told he's fighting, is now telling him to have Nikki Haley go to the UN and threaten Syria and Russia, which you'll hear when I come back on the Savage Nation.
Savage.
So I used to love Latin music when I was a kid. Loved it. Then I looked at the lyrics. It was about like cockroaches. Cucaracha, cucaracha. I didn't know what I was dancing to. La cucaracha, la cucaracha. I found out they were dancing to a cockroach. That's when I lost my interest in Cuban music at the time. Anyway, going back to the news of the day, Nikki Haley goes before the UN today and starts warmongering, and it's very worrisome, threatening Syria and Russia. I want you to listen for a minute. Please listen.
The United States has been very clear with Russia and with the broader international community. We consider any assault on Idlib to be a dangerous escalation of the conflict in Syria.
It's like propaganda.
If Assad, Russia, and Iran continue, the consequences will be dire.
It's like propaganda out of communist China.
3 million people are at risk in Idlib.
Wait, stop. Okay, let's stop. You know what Idlib is? It's the last stronghold of ISIS. I want you to think about what you're listening to. ISIS, remember the ones who were beheading, raping their way across the Middle East? You do remember them, don't you? The ones that America apparently funded under Obama. And then Trump came along, and he lent the U.S. Air Force in a big way to the Russian Air Force, and they wiped ISIS out across Syria. Remember that? You forgot the history already? So now they're in their last stronghold in Idlib. Now we're warning Russia not to go in and finish the job of getting rid of ISIS. Think about this. I want you to think about it. And I want you to think about Nikki Haley, the warmonger. And I want you to think what's happened to the Trump administration since the walrus came in. And why he picked him, I know why he picked him. I know who pushed him in there, too. I know why he was picked. I know the New World Order picked him. Don't for 1 minute listen to this crap about the swamp. Half the people around them are in the swamp. So stop with the big lie that he's all alone facing the swamp. When he has a guy like this guy there, whatever his name is, the walrus, pushing war with Russia, tell me that's not the swamp at work. Who would do a bigger job of warmongering than him? So there's Nikki Haley, who I never trusted. Never. She gave me a creepy feeling from the day I met her. Here she is now threatening. I want you to think about how undiplomatic she is, too. These are not the words of a diplomat, what she's using. This is by no means a diplomatic discussion. This is an overt, militant threat to two nations by our nation through the mouth of this hag. And I'd feel the same way if she was a Democrat. No matter what she was, I'd be saying the same thing. So call me consistent if you want to call me anything. That's why I don't like Nikki Haley. She's a warmonger and a threat to the stability of the world, more particularly. I will gamble with anyone in the news business that 95 to 99% of people who voted for Trump do not want him to launch missiles against Syria. Unless they're the idiots, then I know what you say, lock her up, build a wall, that type. The guys with the hats on backwards, lock her up, build a wall, that type. The true believer. Whatever he would tell them, they would say yes. Kill Syrians, yeah. Kill Russians, yeah. We're not talking about them. I'm talking about the intelligent voters who voted for Trump. They do not want war against Assad. They do not want war with Russia particularly. What's the insanity right now? But I know why this is happening, and it's a very sad connection. I don't think I have to go there right now, but I think you can put two and two together why we're doing this, right?
Savage.
All right, so we come back on the Savage Nation. For a moment, I want to talk about fake voters who are double voting, illegal aliens, people who are not registered to vote. It's a serious problem in America, which is why the Democrats continue to flood America with illegal aliens, number one. Why they fight voter registration laws, number two. why they fight voter ID laws. Number 3, because most tax-paying Americans would not vote for socialism. Well, joining us right now is a man who knows that, and he's running for the Secretary of State position here in California, Mark Moyser. Welcome to the Savage Nation. Mark, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
So, Mark Moyser, what did you discover? 23,000 incorrectly registered by the DMV?
Yes, California, we've started this new program called Motor Voter, and when the program rolled out back in April, they immediately found 78,000 Californians had their party registration changed without their consent. And then on Election Day in June, we found out that 118,000 Californians were removed from the voter rolls in Los Angeles County. And then this week, we found out that 23,000 Californians were mistakenly registered to vote through the DMV process. And
well, wait, when you say mistakenly registered to vote, meaning they're not eligible to vote?
Basically, they did not fill out the proper affidavits and stuff. So when you are at DMV, there was a affidavit that you had to file, and the employees at the DMV basically had not cleared proper screens on their computers, and the next thing we know, they had mistakenly administrative error, or whatever term you want to use, but that's what they're using, I should say. 23,000 people had voter registrations created on their behalf that were not correct.
So you mean the DMV in California is an arm of the Democrat Party in plain English?
That's one way of putting it.
And this is under Jerry Brown's watch. Isn't that illegal?
Well, it's, there are some things that whether they're illegal or just incompetency, and this has just been, all the errors that have been going on with this.
Well, we won't be reading this in the L.A. Times, the Sacramento newspapers, or the Nun paper in San Francisco, will we? They are all propaganda sheets of the Democrat Party. So on a show like this, and you called our show to be on it because we're one of the last bastions of free speech here in California, you are disclosing today that you know for a fact, as a candidate for the Secretary of State, that at least 23,000 people were registered to vote who were not eligible to vote. Is that what you're saying?
Well, they didn't go fill out the proper paperwork. So, whether they were eligible to vote, that's a whole other thing. But they, the DMV did not do the proper paperwork.
All right, so they rushed them through. They rubber stamped them in because they wanted to register them as Democrats. Are you running as a Republican or as a Democrat?
I am running as a Republican for California Secretary of State. That is the chief election officer of the state of California.
And you want to hear something, listeners of the show? I didn't even know till right now what he was running at. You hear this? I didn't ask if he was a Dem, an Independent, or Republican. All I knew is that he had an interesting discovery for you out there. And if you think it only goes on in California, you are mistaken. It's going on across the country. So remember the name, because we may have one honest man running for the Secretary of State's office, and his name is Mark Moyser, Meuscer. And Mark, thank you for being with us on the Savage Nation.
Hey, thank you for having me.
See, I didn't know if he was a Dem or Republican. How do you like that? Even if he was a Democrat, I had him on. I would say he's a good candidate. But he isn't a Democrat. He's a Republican. So you have a choice here in California. But what's going on elsewhere? Tell me. Huh? All right, let's take some calls on the other topics. You know what I feel about so many topics because I've expressed myself. We're talking about God, about prayer, about the Jewish holiday of Rosh Hashanah, which starts sundown on Sunday. If you see people walking to and fro temple in that time, Jewish people, even the non-religious Jews, they call them whatever they call them. That's the 2 days a year they become religious. They still have a little bit of the child in them. It's like the fallen Catholic may go Christmas to church, right? People who are not religious Christians will remember Christmas and Easter, right? Well, for the Jewish person, they remember Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Rosh Hashanah is a happy holiday, the beginning of the year. Rosh Hashanah. And that's the beginning of almost 6,000 years of continuous record-keeping as a civilization, which is a very long time. It's the cornerstone of Western civilization. And most educated Christians understand that. We're not talking about the bigoted fools or the far-right Nazis. We're not talking about them who hate Jewish people for reasons they don't even understand. We're talking about the educated Christians are very interested in their Jewish cousins. Or as my deceased friend Lorenzo Petroni of North Beach Restaurant said to me while he was still alive, same corporation, different division. I love Lorenzo. I miss him a lot, you know. He was like a casual friend of mine, but I remember this guy. He was such a wonderful man. Devout Christian. This man went to church, St. Peter and Paul Church in North Beach, twice a day for Mass. Would you believe this? Big, burly Italian guy. He was the kind of guy when you like put your arm around him, it was like putting your arm around an oak tree. He was like a barrel himself, like an oak barrel made of iron. But had he lived through deprivation, my God, some nights I would sit talking with him in the rain outside. I hear the thunder, and I hear the thunder in his voice as he told the stories of his life in Italy. You know, people go to Tuscany for a vacation. He lived on a farm in Tuscany as a little boy. And he told me what happened when the Nazis conquered or occupied Italy and what they did in that village to him, which I won't give anything away. It was horrible what he lived through. But he overcame it all. He came here. He got a job as a waiter, worked his way up, built a beautiful restaurant. And I became very friendly with him over the years. In fact, I don't know where I'm going on and on. I just saw a picture of him the other day on my wall. I missed the guy because I remember him. There he was in his winery with a thing that they put in a barrel to taste it. I don't even know what it is. But the man was of very humble origins. He came here, he had nothing, and he built a winery, and he planted olive trees. And I remember the day he had the estate up in Sonoma. He invited me up. I can remember to this day, it was 1995. I had just bought my 1965 Cadillac convertible used. I just started in radio. I wanted to get something to symbolize it. So I used to say when the chrome was thick and the women were straight, so I bought a 1965 Caddy convertible. It was like new. I had it on stage at the event once in the... People remember the Concord Pavilion. I drove it out on stage. It was a big event. Anyway, so I had that Cadillac. So I said, hey, Lorenzo, let me drive up and see you. So we went up, 1995, to his. He had just bought this acreage up in Sonoma. And he wasn't planted yet, but he was planting his olive trees. He was going to plant this vineyard, and then he made a wine, and he made olive oil. It was right out of The Godfather. It was just something to behold, a man who was so of the earth. And he loved animals, this man. As strong as he was, you wouldn't catch him hunting bighorn sheep in Canada, killing innocent creatures. No, you wouldn't catch him doing that. In fact, there was a donkey at the bottom of the road near his estate up in the mountains that he used to feed every day. And sometimes he would imitate the donkey sound for me. I'd break up laughing. He loved that donkey. That's what I'm talking about. That's the heart and soul of a human being. But this was a man who was religious, strong man, been through deprivation, been through hell, and created a life for himself anyway, and suffered through it. He never complained about it. I shouldn't go into it. I mean, I was there the night his eldest son died. You don't want to know what it's like to be around the man who's grieving the death of a son. You don't want to know it. Oh, what a night that was. Oh, boy, I'm getting so off track here. And by the way, that was a dark night, outside and in. But when he talked to me about that night, when he talked to me about his pain, the whole restaurant shook. I felt that place shook. The table shook with his pain and his rage. But he was a faithful man, a God-fearing man, and a very reasonable man. I guess that's why I'm talking about him. Anyway, I'm just getting off track here. We're getting back to the important stuff like Obama and Trump, right? That's real important, sure. So, war and peace. Here we go again. We elect Trump on a non-interventionist platform. A man who said he'll bring the troops home from Afghanistan and the Middle East. A man who said he'd wipe out ISIS. And now we wake up and there's Nikki Haley, the warmonger, screaming in the UN, threatening Russia and Syria. You use chemical weapons, you'll see what'll happen. And the same day, France is threatening Russia and Syria. The same day, England's threatening France and Russia. So the New World Order is very much alive. All of these politicians are in trouble in their own countries, and they're going to use war as a pretext to get the people's minds off their political problems, as sure as I'm standing here. Now, I know you don't want to hear it. MAGA, lock her up. MAGA, lock her up. MAGA, lock her up. I don't care who's in the White House. I really don't care who and what their name is. If they lie to us and they take us to war, sorry, I'm going to say it's wrong. Tell me what threat Syria poses to you. Tell me what threat Syria poses to you. Tell me what threat Russia poses to you. You know they pose no threat to you. So here we hear that Russia collusion, which was fake, that's from the Democrats. Now we hear Trump's liable to go to war with Russia. What sense does this make? Can you follow any of this? Oh, jobs are booming. The economy's on fire. Good, I'm glad. We're all thrilled to death. But we want world peace. We don't want world war, especially World War III. And that's my Jewish New Year's prayer. We want peace, not war, especially from a man who ran on a peace ticket. Never forget that Trump ran on a peace ticket. If you listen to the tapes that I have of his interviews on this show, all through 2016, it was all about peace. That he'll meet with Putin. He'll put down the war thing between the Clintons and Obama and Russia. And here we go again, the New World Order. The swamp we hear he's fighting is now speaking through Nikki Haley. So let me ask you some logic. After all these years, ISIS has finally retreated to one city, Idlib, whatever the hell, Idlib. One city there, in a stronghold. They're in this one city. They're about to be wiped out. And who comes along? Who are the white hats coming along to save them from being finally snuffed out? Who? France, the United States, and England. Can you explain that to me? Can anyone explain it to me? Don't bother, because I know the answer. Sam on KSFO, line 7, what's on your mind?
Dr. Savage, I just want to know, how long is Russia going to sit back and not do anything? I know they want good relations with us, and they see how the pressure on Trump is, with Russia and everything. So they're backing off, and they're letting it play out. But when are they going to say, okay, enough's enough? We want good relations with you, but how are you going to stop us from fighting terror? I mean, and even McGurk a year ago said there's over 70,000 militants in Al-Qaeda in Idlib. Why are we stopping them? I don't understand.
Well, I think you're begging the question for which there is a very distinct answer, because an article appeared last night in the Jerusalem Post, of all places, acknowledging that Israel has actually funded these, quote, rebels with weapons and advanced training. Did you know that?
Absolutely. Hebrew.
No, see, I didn't want to have to say it on a day like today, because it only feeds the frenzy of anti-Semitism that exists in the right wing to begin with. But if it's published in the Jerusalem Post, I'm obligated to give you the big picture here, am I not?
Absolutely. I saw that.
All right, well, that's it. What do you want me to say? You think I don't see things as they are? I do see things as they are, and it's not very pretty. I'll be right back.
Savage.
Hey, welcome back. There's a new forecast predicting more than 146 billion records will be stolen by cyber criminals over the next 5 years. And the United States will be the largest single target during this time. So even with this forecast, spending on cybersecurity is going to stay relatively flat. And small businesses will be particularly vulnerable because as many of them spend less than $500 a year on cybersecurity. That's crazy. And there's so many threats in today's connected world, it just gets worse and worse and worse. And one weak link and the criminals can get into your system. And that's why I recommend LifeLock Identity Theft, because they have Norton Security and protects against threats to your identity and your devices. I have it myself. No one can stop every cyber threat or prevent all identity theft or monitor transactions at all locations, but new LifeLock with Norton Security can see the threats you might miss on your own. Please go to LifeLock.com or call 1-800-LifeLock. Use promo code SAVAGE. You'll get an extra 10% off your first year. Wait, here's the good part. If you do that and you sign up, you'll get a $25 Amazon gift card with annual enrollment. You get a twofer out of it. You get security and you get a gift. Okay? LifeLock.com or 1-800-LifeLock. Promo code SAVAGE. Do it. It's good for you. Let's go to KBET, Carl, line 8. Make it fast, Carl. We don't have much time. Thank you.
Yeah, hey, Dr. Savage, you're talking about religion. I've talked to you before. I'm a retired psychologist. I delved into religion, and I find religion basically was started to control the masses.
I've heard this before, but you're a psychologist. Don't you control the masses with psychology?
Well, not that many.
Yeah. Okay, but you do control the masses with psychology, don't you?
To a point, but that's a lot what religion is, to control the masses.
Well, there's certainly validity to that, to make people frightened and conform to the leaders of the religion. There's no question about it. I'd be a liar to say otherwise, but it doesn't mean there's no validity to the religion.
I'm not putting down religion. I'm saying...
All right. Good luck. That's all. And where do you go on Christmas Eve? And who do you pray with when you're in a foxhole under enemy fire? And God forbid you should get sick and you're in a room alone in a hospital. Who are you going to turn to? Freud? You're going to pray to Jung, Freud, Engler? Which one would you pray to? at the last moments of your life? Who are we going to turn to? You're not going to say, God, help me? You're not going to look up and say, God, please save me? You can say, Freud, please help me? Adler, please help me? That's the funny part. We're all independent and arrogant and egotistical, and we should be when we're alive. It's how we get through life. We have to have this chutzpah to get through a single day. We got to believe that we're immortal and we're tough and this. You have to. But at the end, when you're alone, you don't have self-doubts. The strongest man doesn't have any self-doubts about his existence. When all the lights go out and he's alone in his room, how many orgasms can the actor have a day? How many orgasms can the sex maniac have a day? Don't they at some point say, even that comes to an end? I don't understand it. I don't know how people have no faith in anything or no belief in anything other than hedonism. Maybe it works for other people. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I missed that boat. But I will tell you this. I think that we're not so dissimilar, all of us, no matter what we may think. I think in many ways most humans, with the exception of the true psychopaths, are cut from the same bolt of cloth. We want peace. We want security. We want to be left alone. We want to have freedom. What do you think we want? We're all the same at the end of the day. And those are the final notes of this hour on the program. This is the Savage Nation.
Michael Savage, a host like no other.